Mount Chomolungma, the tallest mountain in the world and the highest point on Earth. From the Himalayas to the Karakoram Mountains, the spectacular landscape of this area, known as the third pole of the Earth, is one dominated by towering mountains. The mountains of China make this already extraordinary country even more extraordinary. These mountains endow the world with a great variety of landscapes and wild animals. Mountainous areas account for 70% of China's total land area. The backbone of China's topography is made up of more than 160 criss-crossing mountain ranges, and hidden among them are many rarely seen secrets of nature. The steep mountains here are home to what we can only call professional rock climbers. These blue sheep can walk on sheer cliff faces that are very close to being vertical, and they seem to do it as easily as if walking on the ground. This extraordinary rock climbing ability, which seems something like only superheroes can do, helps the sheep escape from predators. It's through danger that they find safety. For young blue sheep, acquiring the ability to move freely on the cliffs takes quite some time. Springtime in the Himalayas is a season for families. This is a snow leopard family. 3 young cubs have only just learned to go round with their parents. For now, everything is still very new to them. But by the time they are 1 year old, the young snow leopards will have mastered hunting skills. By the age of 3, they will be living independently. Learning the skills necessary to survive is a lengthy process. To hunt and kill, the snow leopard must be as skilled at climbing as its prey. These little snow leopards haven't yet begun to learn how to stalk, but the mountain tops are also home to other predators that pose a real danger. The blue sheep survive their encounter with the young hunter, but the real danger comes from the air. A golden eagle has a wingspan of more than 2 meters. For this powerful bird, snatching a small blue sheep poses no difficulty. Under the cover of night, the snow leopard family finally catch something. The blue sheep is a major food source for the snow leopard. Just one can feed a family of 5 for 10 days. At 5,000 meters above sea level, life is a major challenge. Yet some quite large wild animals are able to survive here. Among all wild yaks, the wild golden yak is the rarest. In fact, the entire world population comes to no more than 50. The wild yak is the largest wild animal in Qinghai Tibetan Plateau. In summer, they can be found at elevations of more than 6,000 meters above sea level. In April, the Tian Shan Mountains are covered in wild apricot blooms. This is the world's largest wild apricot forest. The Tian Shan mountain range stretches 2,500 kilometers, and throughout that distance, the mountain ridges vary considerably in height, causing strong upward currents. The raptors of the sky use these air currents to start off on their migration. During the warm spring, at the foot of the mountain, flowers come into bloom. Above the snowline, however, the scene is still cold and desolate. The most striking thing about the ibex is its 2 long horns. Its climbing ability is in every way equal to that of the blue sheep. The land inhabited by the ibex is situated at more than 4,000 meters above sea level. The Tian Shan Mountains divide Xinjiang into 2 parts. Warm and humid air flowing from the Atlantic to the northern foot of the Tian Shan Mountains delivers an abundance of rainfall. The precipitation here reaches a maximum of 2,000 millimeters, which is close to what it would be in a subtropical region. Little wonder, then, that this is home to some of China's finest grasslands. The southern foot of the Tian Shan Mountains, one of the places on Earth farthest from an ocean, is very different from the northern foot. The minimum rainfall in this area is less than 10 millimeters, and it is here we find the Taklamakan Desert, famed for its waves, drifting sand dunes. 2 entirely different worlds are separated by this mountain range. In the Tian Shan Mountains, there's a secluded haven completely isolated from the world, where a complete and utterly unique mountain ecosystem is preserved. It's called Xia Oshili. The grassland at the foot of the mountain is a paradise for herbivores. Roe deer and other small deer that were once found all over the northern mountains are today rarely seen, but here they thrive. Above the grassland there's a dense forest. When startled, the herbivores quickly flee to what is for them a natural shelter. When night falls, some mysterious animals appear in the region. They're known as Tianshan wapiti. These animals follow a pattern of diurnal migration. During the day, the wapiti climb high into the mountains over 3,000 meters above sea level. All this is simply to avoid the mosquitoes, which plague the lower altitudes. At night, they make their way back to the grassland on the lower slope to feed. Mountain streams carry salt and vital minerals down to where the deer and wapiti are wont to graze. This is the edge of the Sichuan Basin. It's close to summer, yet the temperature at the top of the mountain is still close to zero. Due to the extraordinary height of the mountains here, climatic environments and ecosystems differ greatly, and they are, of course, distributed vertically. At this point, the Sichuan Basin, which is at the foot of the mountains, reaches a temperature close to 30 degrees Celsius, and it's bustling with life and activity. In the mountain forest at 3,000 meters above sea level, on the other hand, everything is quiet and bleak. However, green shoots are now emerging from the ground, a sure sign that it's getting warmer. A blood pheasant has already begun its search for a mate. Even before the snow melts, rhododendrons begin to bloom. However, rhododendrons blooming at such a low temperature face something of a challenge. As few insects can survive weather as cold as this, the question of exactly which creatures will pollinate them would seem to be a problem. But the rhododendrons have come up with their own solution. They use their rich honey to attract a new helper, the willow warbler. This small bird pollinates plants in much the same way as American hummingbirds. The Wuliang Mountains in Yunnan are particularly steep, with extremely strong faces forged by the area's intense rains. The height of these mountains and the depth of the valleys make the Wuliang Mountains difficult to access and keep them isolated from the outside world. In the primeval forest of the mountains, there lives an animal few people know anything about, which is not too surprising as they come and go like the wind, leaving no trace. Locals call them wind monkeys, while elsewhere they're known as western black-crested gibbons. Gibbons are apes. Today there are less than 1,000 western black-crested gibbons, and that means they are as rare as the giant panda in China. Gibbons live high up among the trees. Their strong and powerful arms are twice as long as their bodies, which help them move around freely in the tree canopy. In days gone by, the sounds of the waters of the Yangtze River and the howling of the gibbons on both shores accompanied people as they passed by on their journeys. 1,000 years ago, gibbons were widespread throughout the area south of the Yangtze River, but now their territory has shrunk considerably. These gibbons are now only found in the southwest and some remote mountainous areas in Hainan. For this close relative of mankind, the high mountains and deep valleys provide a final refuge. The long howls of these gibbons comprise their unique language. They use their vocalizations, which echo across the high mountains and deep valleys, to communicate across distances of more than 5 kilometers. Their howls can be used to coordinate actions and communicate emotions. Female gibbons have unique golden hair. A gibbon community is matriarchal and has a stable family structure. The mother or grandmother leads the family, which includes 2 to 3 male members and 4 to 5 cubs, forming a family of around 10 gibbons. Located in the southwest border of China, the Wuliang Mountains are the gibbon's last mainland refuge. An important reason is that the forest here supplies the gibbons with leaves, buds, fruits, and even flowers, all of which provide them with the energy they need for their daily activities and reproduction. Such easy access to food allows the gibbons to spend more time playing and communicating. The black-crested gibbon is, in fact, the only member of the ape family found in China. It's intelligent and strong, so it has almost no natural enemies. It's the unchallenged king of China's southwest mountains. In the mating season, it's the female gibbons that initiate courtship. They give special attention to the fur of their potential mates and then shake their heads rhythmically with increasing motion. It's a kind of love dance. But despite this, the black-crested gibbon is endangered, due primarily to its shrinking habitat and low reproduction rate. The highest peak in northeast China is found in the Changbai mountain range, and it's here, at the top of the mountains, that we find China's deepest lake. At the bottom of the lake, there's a dormant volcanic crater. The conifer broadleaf forest at the foot of Changbai mountain range, the most typical type of forest found in Northeast Asia, remains untouched and is thus well preserved. The wood frog is an amphibian that lives in the primary forest of the Changbai Mountains. It's particularly sensitive to changes in temperature. In September, when the leaves begin to turn yellow and fall, the frog knows that winter is coming. It must act fast to find a suitable place to hibernate before the mountain is covered in a deep layer of snow. To find a place to hibernate in this 800,000-hectare virgin forest, the wood frog needs a lot of energy. The dominant tree species in the forest is the Korean pine. They can grow up to 30 meters high. Every autumn, giant pine cones fall from the trees like cannonballs, making the road taken by the wood frogs one fraught with risk. If hit, the consequences can be fatal. The ripe pine cones play a vital role in the forest ecosystem. Through the thick shell, the pine nuts emit a strong aroma, leading the chipmunks to a delicacy they've been looking forward to. The pine nuts are rich in oil, making them an important food reserve for the winter. Although the strong aroma leads the chipmunk to its target, another has beaten him to it. In autumn, the calorie-rich pine nuts are highly sought after, and not just by the chipmunks. Wild boars love them too. After a full meal, the wild boar finally wanders off, its appetite satiated. The chipmunk finally gets its opportunity to enjoy the pine cones laid out before it. The pine cones of the Korean pines have a unique structure. The shells are thick and hard. They don't break even when they've fallen from a height of over 30 meters. The chipmunk's sharp incisors, however, can easily crack the pine cones open. The chipmunk is a bit like an experienced farmer. It stuffs its cheek pouches with a large number of pine nuts and then returns to its home, where they will be stored as rations for the winter. Here, autumn is the busy harvest season, and all the residents of the forest prepare for the winter in their own way. A stream slowly carries fallen leaves downstream. After the stream freezes in winter, under the solid ice, the fallen leaves and mud will create a relatively warm environment. It takes the little wood frog most of the autumn to finally find the ideal place to hibernate. The conifer broadleaf forest is the dominant forest type in China's northeastern mountains. Nearly 600 species of plants grow in the forests of the Changbai Mountains, and together these trees, shrubs and herbs constitute the basis for the forest's wildlife. It's not only a complex environment that nourishes a rich variety of animal communities, it's a natural ecological museum, one of the planet's vital gene banks. The chipmunk has been busy for hours. It's time to give itself a small reward. At noon, the sun passes through the lush canopy and shines on the ground. This is the warmest time of the day. After a nice nap, the chipmunk realizes something is wrong. Another chipmunk is busy stealing its pine nuts. The food in the forest is not owned by any one animal, it's very much a case of first come, first served. The uninvited guest has begun to move not just some pine nuts, but the entire pine cone. It's essential now to protect the fruits of its labor. What might otherwise be an idle afternoon has suddenly turned into a battlefield. Every creature wants to enrich its own winter reserves. Throughout the autumn, the chipmunks store away more than twice the amount of food they will consume in winter. This means that more than half of the pine nuts they collect will be left behind in their warehouses to fall into the soil and later germinate. Inadvertently, the chipmunks help propagate the Korean pines. In the Changbai Mountains, the first snow covers the virgin forest. This stream originates from the crater lake. The water is relatively warm. It's early winter, yet it still hasn't frozen. In the stream, under the thick aquatic weeds and layers of humus, the wood frog has begun to hibernate. As it begins to snow, the temperature drops sharply. The nighttime temperature reaches close to -10 degrees Celsius. Gradually, the stream freezes over, isolating a relatively warm underwater world under an icy surface. Here, the wood frog will spend the long winter. The Changbai Mountains receive the highest precipitation found in northeast China, as it's here that cold air currents from Siberia and warm, humid air currents from the Pacific Ocean meet. After the arrival of winter, there are regular and heavy snowfalls that shroud the virgin forests of the Changbai Mountains in silence. Within it, the forest hides life that awaits the arrival of the next spring. Ulaanbaatar in northern Inner Mongolia is one of the coldest cities in the whole of China. During particularly severe winters, the temperature can fall to -40 degrees Celsius. In the north of Ulaanbaatar is the Greater Qing'an Range, home to China's northernmost forests. Here the temperatures can reach as low as -52 degrees Celsius. In winter, people of the Evenki ethnic group who have been living in the forest return to their settlements down the mountains, leaving their domesticated reindeer in the forest. The vastness of China's territory is extraordinary. It's the only country in the world with elephants in the south and reindeer in the north. In winter, the Greater Qing'an Range is totally silent. In the autumn, the pine needles of the Dahurian larch fell to the ground. Now the sun shines directly on the snow. This is the largest primeval forest in China, and it marks out the dividing line between the Mongolian plateau and the Songliao plain. Over the past 50 years, nearly 130 million cubic meters of timber have been harvested from the Greater Qing'an Range. If it was used to build a fence a meter tall, it would circle the earth 3 times. Life can always be found in the most unexpected of environments. When night falls, various animals with bright eyes appear in the forest. Whenever there's a cold snap, the temperature in the forest drops drastically. It's not easy for animals to survive such low temperatures. Due to the use of its fur in the making of luxury garments, Today, the sable is on the verge of extinction. In the snow, it's a master hunter in search of prey. The heavy snow covers the sable's own tracks perfectly, but in turn makes it more difficult to find its prey. The accumulated snow in the forest forms a solid reservoir. The snowfall period in the Greater Khinghan Range lasts for more than 6 months, providing an abundant supply of water for the eastern Mongolian plateau and the northeast China plain. In the wind and snow, a black-billed capercaillie remains vigilant. The dense forests of the Greater Khinghan Range are its main habitat. The sparse pickings available in winter keep the black-billed capercaillie on tight rations. With the melting of the snow, this forest, situated 1,000 meters above sea level, sees the beginning of spring. Before the greenery of the forest bursts forth, the first to respond to the call of the season are the animals. Well before the snow disappears from the forest, the black-billed capercaillie begins its unique courtship dance. When spring comes, the male black-billed capercaillie begins a kind of love dance marathon. Its courtship dance will last about 40 days and will be key to attracting females. Today, however, it's turned out to be a lonely dance, as not one female black-billed capercaillie has shown up. This expression of desire for a mate brings with it great danger. Upon hearing the sound, the sable makes haste. The sable is a master climber, and after the long winter, it's in urgent need of satisfying its hunger. Right now, there's no desirable prey in the area other than the black-headed capercaillie, which is fully focused on its courtship dance. Just as the sable is about to strike a fatal blow, the black-billed capercaillie gets away. After the male has danced for a month, a female black-billed capercaillie finally shows up in the branches. As this is an opportunity definitely not to be missed, the male capercaillie dances with even greater intensity. However, now there's a rival. A duel between the two suitors is inevitable. Probing, touching, standing and fighting each other, they do their best to impress the female referee on the branch above. China is known for its abundance of pheasant species. Among the world's 276 species of pheasants, 56 are found in China, and of them, 26 are endangered species protected by the state. Of course, pheasants are also among the world's most beautiful birds. And finally, we have a winner. Its feathers may be a little messy, and its neck rather worse for wear, but it has won the prize. The female black-billed capercaillie has declared him the victor. The mountainous terrain and the unique air uplifts found here combine to form a series of unique climates. The mountain ecosystems are complex and diverse, affecting the distribution and function of numerous organisms. In a country with a population of 1.4 billion, mountains like these provide hidden habitats that are a sanctuary for numerous living things. In these amazing mountains that divide deserts from grasslands, ancient species and amazing stories are passed on from generation to generation.